All right, now it's time to talk about natural gas, which is something that might be somewhat of a transition fuel. If the United States and the world is going to move off of a reliance on things like oil and coal for our transportation, our heating, and electricity needs, we're going to need some type of transition fuel, and natural gas just might be that fuel source. So you might be a little shocked to hear that. All right, that natural gas might be the answer, but this lecture will give you a little bit of sense on why that might become our reality. All right, so let's start with the basics here. Remember that natural gas, like coal and oil, is a fossil fuel. All right, it's a mixture of hydrocarbons, and that's where the energy comes from. So our energy comes from breaking that hydrogen-carbon bond, just like the other fossil fuels. So in this case, natural gas is mostly methane. When we talk about natural gas, about 80 to 95% of natural gas is methane. And the others, ethane, propane, and butane, can make up somewhere between 5 and 20% of the natural gas, depending on its quality. All right, so what makes this such a great alternative is that it burns so much cleaner. All right, if you look here, it releases 30% less carbon dioxide than oil and almost 50% less carbon dioxide than coal. So we look at it as an alternative, and we must explore it as a possible option because it burns so much cleaner, and you're also going to see how abundant the natural gas is, especially in the United States. All right, how do we get it? Again, it's a fossil fuel and it forms along with oil, just like oil. So we're talking about marine organisms that are modified by heat and pressure and that are turned to oil. And then if you continue that heat and pressure, geologically speaking, it can become natural gas. So inside of these rock formations like shale, all right, you can think of the oil and the natural gas floating on the top of the shale formation, just like floating on top of water. All right, so what we have to do is find those, locate those deposits, and the traditional way is to drill down and access that deposit. And here, down here is a picture of a drill site. All right, and then once you've accessed that deposit, because it's a gas, it'll literally float up the wellhead. So you install a system of valves that can allow the natural gas to simply flow out of the well. So it's a pretty simple process to drill for natural gas. All right, natural gas is abundant in the United States. All right, it's found in reservoirs underneath the Earth's surface, and it's easily transmitted through pipelines. We have a tremendous infrastructure of pipeline to be able to transport natural gas around the country. All right, uses, it accounts for about 25% of energy use in the United States. It's tremendously useful in residential, commercial, and industrial applications. All right, and if you look down here at the bottom, it's one of the cheapest energy forms for residential. And here's where most people are using natural gas for their home heating purposes. A lot of people use it to cook as well, but heating by far is one of the most useful uses for natural gas in residential application. And then commercial and industry also uses it, in the production of our goods. They need to use heat to produce our goods. Okay, so use of natural gas by sector. We produce about 29% of our electricity from natural gas. All right, and then there's tremendous industrial application as well. But again, natural gas is very useful to use in the heating and cooling of our homes and cooking and things like that. And I see that only increasing as population increases. So natural gas has tremendous influence within society, and I don't see that changing. Right? In fact, I see that only increasing into the future. All right, so where is our natural gas? If you take a look at this map here, you notice a big giant band going from the Gulf of Mexico through Texas all the way up through Colorado and Wyoming. So there's tremendous amounts of proven reserves under the ground in our country. And we're talking about proven reserves here, what we know about. And then you'll also see a concentration right here, what we're going to call the Marcellus Shale up in the mid-Atlantic states, which includes Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Kentucky. Okay, so we'll get to that. It's a very important shale formation where we're tapping into those reserves today. All right, natural gas has a high net energy yield. Okay, and we have ample supplies. I mean, if you look at the high end here, it could take us 200 years into the future at current consumption and how we're using it today. And it's also a good fuel for things like fuel cells, which might be the future source of energy for our cars. Okay, so natural gas, very useful, abundant, high net energy yield. All right, if you look here, this is the ratio of energy returned on energy invested. So think about net energy, the amount of energy you put into obtaining a resource, refining it, and things like that, and then you compare it to the amount of energy you get out of it. So if you look here, you might notice right away that hydro has the best return on investment. All right, that's literally almost off the charts. All right, and then coal is also cheap and abundant. But take a look at natural gas. All right, it's also it's very competitive with all the other sources of energy, including oil and coal. All right, it's able to compete in regarding its net energy investment. All right, so you can see some of the ones that are have poor net energy returns. Things like solar, shale oil, biofuels, certain biofuels. All right, so it's one of the reasons why some of those energy sources are less invested than these cheaper fossil fuels. Okay, here's some more numbers. In 2002, we burned enough to provide 53% of the heat in United States homes and 16% of the country's electricity. But if you take a look here, by 2020, it's thought that about 1/3, 33% of our country's electricity may come from natural gas. So again, just showing the potential and the future of this energy source as being a growing one. All right, we talk about it as being a transition fuel from what we use, trying to reduce consumption of oil and coal to more greener energies. To get off of those fossil fuels, we need to transition, and natural gas may be the answer. All right, another pro is that cars can be easily modified to run off of natural gas. Problem with green energy, things like solar and wind, you cannot store those energies, but with natural gas you could store it for years. All right, here's an important map that shows the current infrastructure of our natural gas pipelines in our country. Okay, the blue are interstate pipelines. They go across states, and the red are intrastate. But if you take a step back and you look at this, you'll notice that there is a tremendous amount of infrastructure to transport natural gas in and around our country. So just for an example, you can take a look here at Souderton area. All right, we have a pipeline that goes all the way down into the Gulf of Mexico to bring natural gas from all the way down there up here so that we can heat our homes up in this region. But if you stand back, you'll notice there's already a tremendous amount of infrastructure in place. Okay, and here is some of that infrastructure. We use pipelines that are buried underground. All right, this is how we transport natural gas. And if you've ever seen a cut in a forest that goes up and over in mountains and through communities and things like that, you'll notice that some of them are electric lines, but others are natural gas pipelines. And you might see a little yellow pole. It might look like this. All right, just sticking out of the ground. It might have a little sign on it that says natural gas. All right, usually they come in twos. You'll see it flanking the underground pipe that's underground here somewhere. Okay, if you see those, that's a natural gas pipeline. All right, if you drive around your area, you'll notice them. Who has the natural gas? On every AP exam, this question will appear. Who has the most natural gas reserves in the world? And the clear answer is Russia. They have by far the most natural gas underneath their land. All right, and then if you notice here, the Middle East has a lot of proven reserves as well. The United States has a lot of their own reserves. We have a tremendous amount of natural gas underneath our land, and just take a look here. We're talking about trillions of cubic feet of natural gas. Okay, so we rank 5th on the top countries with the most natural gas in the world. All right, but just remember Russia as having the most. Take a look here at the cost bar graph, just taking a look at the price range of some of these energies. And if you notice, what we're looking at is cents per kilowatt along the y-axis. And take a look at how expensive wind and biomass and things like solar panels and especially wave energy. But then look at coal and natural gas. And you can quickly realize why these are two resources that are used for our electricity in our country. All right, they're cheap and abundant. Okay, and this also goes to show you why some other energies are not that well explored. All right, they're just too expensive that it's not economically feasible. But coal and gas are very cheap and abundant. Okay, we can also use natural gas in our vehicles. All right, and there's two types. There's CNG, all right, and that's called compressed natural gas. All right, and compressed natural gas is natural gas that's compressed into a high pressure container and put into a car. So we're looking down here at this tank that's in the trunk of this car. It could also be put in at the pump. All right, natural gas works easily in cars. All right, very little modification, but in this way, it's difficult to transport from gas station to gas station. All right, that's one of the issues with compressed natural gas. Whoops. Compressed natural gas, CNG. All right, the other type of natural gas for your vehicle is LPG. All right, liquefied petroleum gas. This has a little bit more potential, whereas the compressed natural gas, you don't really want to transport across the country in compressed containers. Liquefied petroleum gas is a little bit safer. It's liquefied. A car can transport it. Tanker trucks can easily transport it. Both have potential for energy for transportation, but I see liquid petroleum gas as being a little bit safer of an option. It just needs less modification to vehicles, and it's easier to transport. I see real potential in liquid petroleum gas as being an alternative to gasoline. All right, it's already happening at Penn State University. All their buses run on compressed natural gas. They have their own fueling stations. In the lower left, there's a picture, and they're very proud of running their entire bus fleet, their public transportation fleet, on compressed natural gas. All right, so it's already happening in the commercial sector of transportation. Why don't we use natural gas in our vehicles? It's cheap. It has a high net energy yield. All right, there's a couple of different reasons, and we'll go through them very quickly. All right, with compressed natural gas, all right, it's not easily transported to where you need it. All right, it's very difficult to get this stuff from gas station to gas station. But here's probably the more important reason: we lack the infrastructure. All right, everything we have is set up for oil. We don't have any natural gas stations. So there's a problem here. Who's going to buy a natural gas vehicle if there's no gas station to go to? Why would you buy a vehicle? Alternatively, who's going to invest in buying a gas station that sells natural gas if there's no cars on the road that take natural gas? So really, the problem is who's going to strike first? Is it going to be the consumer who's going to start buying natural gas cars, but they're going to have a problem? There's nowhere to fuel up. The investors aren't going to invest in gas stations because there's no cars on the road. So really, we're set up for oil, and it'll be very difficult in the transportation sector to transition from gasoline and oil-derived fuels to something like natural gas. So there's a catch-22 here. What I see is we need the infrastructure first, all right, so that we can change from oil to gas, and then cars can be bought by consumers. Maybe it'll start in the commercial sector like we were talking about, and then those gas stations can also service people who have natural gas vehicles. I don't know, but right now we have a catch-22. All right, and here's a little bit more of a controversial answer to why we don't use natural gas in our vehicles. People are scared. Right, they're scared that their cars might blow up. All right, don't ever put this on a test. Change is very difficult, and as soon as people get it in their heads that their car might explode, they're rear-ended, they have a compressed natural gas tank in their car, that fear of explosion might scare people away. from making a change to a natural gas vehicle. But like I said, don't ever put that on a test. That's just something to think about.